the most absurd thing to try and do is to censor live performance. There was a time when I would arrive at the censor board with the script and they would say, oh my God, here we go again. That kind of thing.
Like I said, I come from a middle-class Maharashtrian family. Theatre is our culture, and so nothing like that exists. Only 1 or 2% of Maharashtrian people watch theatre.
In the Indore performance, there were a couple of workers who were very drunk and very angry with the place. And what do you we know all this. Give us a solution to our problem. It's all very well for you to tell us our story, but what's the future for us?
Someone tweeted something and I had to ask my cast. I said that, are you all feeling comfortable to go on for the next one? Because I don't know who's showing up.
More than censorship, we need education. We have to keep that thing alive. You have to find your own voice, and when you find your own voice, you will ask questions.
As a director, you have no control over what your actors are going to do on stage.
Yeah.
Some guy sitting the censor board is going to control?
No.
Give me a break.
Yeah. Hello and welcome to another episode of Unscripted with Akarsh Khurana, an Aadyam podcast produced by MnM Talkies. Let me begin today's episode with a question. What does theatre mean for a nation? Entertainment? Certainly. A brief chance to forget your worries and escape? Surely. But more than that, it's also an important medium of communication and spreading awareness. It can also give voice to dissent, protest, even rebellion. Most of the greatest artists believe that you cannot separate art from politics, and anyone who is trying to do that probably has political intentions of their own. Today we deep dive into theatre that matters and tries to make a difference. We have with us two absolutely wonderful guests. Please welcome renowned director and theatre veteran Sunil Shanbag and the very versatile powerhouse of talent Geetanjali Kulkarni. My beginnings with theatre were as a 6-year-old in a play that was directed by Sunil called Circus. Which, like a lot of Sunil's work, had something to say, which I didn't understand at that time at all because I was 6. I forget who the playwright was.
Brozek.
So I acted in that, and I was a little child playing my own father's son, running around with a gun is what I remember mostly. And that was how I started off. And it was that was the peak of my career because I did a play with Sunil Shanbag, and that year I acted in Waiting for Godot, directed by Benjamin Gilani, where I shared stage with Nasiruddin Shah and Dad. So that was I peaked early. Every year after that was less. So those were my beginnings, and I'm here now asking you all questions. Asking you all questions. I have my podcast now, so that's what I've achieved in 40 years. But yeah, what is your first tryst with theatre? How did it begin? And earliest?
Earliest, you have to go back to school.
We must.
Yeah. And earlier than school is, my mother used to often tell me that when I was in, some kindergarten or something, and the annual day function, and they decided I would play Krishna. Okay, so which meant that just wearing a little thing, kind of a, ornamental, glossy dhoti and bare-bodied. And I ran off the stage because I was too embarrassed. And it became a big scandal because what the hell, the ding didn't happen. So that's really the first experience with theatre.
You ran off stage as Krishna?
Yeah, as Krishna. And then I was cajoled to go back on stage.
Okay.
But then actually, most seriously, it happened in school, Rishi Valley, where there was a lot of, the arts. I mean, there was a lot of music, theatre. We had a full-time theatre teacher.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so every term, there was a junior production and there was a senior production, every term. So when I joined the school, I was new, trying to fit in. And in one of the first few classes, the teacher came and said, who'd like to do a play? And I put my hand up, thinking that could be a good way to belong. And so that was my first play. Interesting moment because I played a wicked magician. With that dunce cap thing that you have in school plays.
Yes.
And this black gown. And they had erected a kind of a throne for me made of crates. And I was supposed to wave my magic wand, and give this kind of, villainous laughter, type laughter, and climb up the steps. And the curtain opened and I did ha ha ha, climbed the steps, whole thing collapsed. So the curtain was very quickly put back on. Everything was rearranged. It opened again and again I went ha ha ha. And 200 people were laughing. And the next day, everybody knew me in school. I said, this is not a bad way to be known, not at all, So then I was in every play, every, term. And yeah, that was the beginning.
Actually, because I belong to a middle class Maharashtrian family, so I always watched theatre. And I remember, like Sunil, I remember that I was in kindergarten and I'd seen a circus. And so I was very much interested. I got interested in this clown, joker, whatever. And I enacted that, and the whole school was watching me. And I think that was the beginning of me, getting attracted to this form because everybody was watching me. And in my colony, there used to be, they used to rehearse 3-act plays,
Wow.
for every Ganpati festival.
Oh,
Like
okay.
the typical mainstream Marathi commercial theatre, Tuza Hai Tuza Pashi and all. And I was 6 years old in my first grade, and I used to watch the rehearsal. I used to skip my uh, game time, and I used to sit there for rehearsals. And I used to read the script, and so I was very much attracted. And I used to love going to Shivaji Mandir and Gadkari Rang Mandir to watch theatre, to watch Bhakti Barve, Sri Ram Lagu, Datta Bhatt. So it was like that whole atmosphere always attracted me. And these red curtains also remind me of Marathi.
And then when did you know you wanted to take it seriously? As in, like, were you?
So I always had that in my mind. Of course, my parents never agreed to it.
Oh,
But
okay.
I still remember I got admission in Ruya College only because it had
Lot
the
of theatre.
tradition
Yes,
of
they had
one
a
act plays
yeah,
and
they
all.
have a strong
Strong
So yeah,
intercollegiate
Yes,
theatre.
so I
yes.
did that, and during my third year of BA, there was this very young professor, Sudha Nair, and she told me that you should get into NSD, and that's why I went to NSD.
Parents were supportive of
No,
NS?
not at all initially, but NSD used to give scholarship.
Okay.
It was
So
just
that
mere
helped.
600,
So,
yeah,
yeah,
mere
so-
600 rupees. And but that helped me, and I could rebel. See, though you come from a middle class, privileged family, you have to rebel. And this is where, system helps you when you get scholarships and all. So I really am thankful to,
No,
these
and
kind
also
of
the idea of
scholarships.
public education as
Yeah.
private education.
Yeah.
I mean, we have friends here who are sitting here who've paid, 100 times that for the same training, for less, in fact.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
और आओ DSM के बच्चे देखो.
no, I'm making a larger point about public education.
Yeah, exactly.
But what was the procedure to get into NSD at that time?
At that time, it was quite easy. So there was one interview in one of the centers. One of the centers was Mumbai, and then we went to Delhi. Those who were shortlisted, and there was a 4-day workshop, which was such a interesting affair. Like we used to do improvisations. All youngsters from all over India used to come there. So we used to cook. We used to do our improvisations,
wow.
exercises.
And you're watched.
Yeah, and you're watched constantly
You've
by the
been-
panel.
No, I know the process. It's very
okay.
interesting. Yeah,
Yeah.
4 days, and then
4 days, yeah.
and they're watching who's doing what.
And
what
then they're
potential.
culling from that.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Okay, that's great. That's
Yeah,
very-
yeah, it's a
Does that
proper-
still happen?
Yeah,
happens.
still
Oh,
happens.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow. And you, Sunil, didn't have formal training like she did. Like your
No.
training was under
On the
Dubeji
job, yeah,
for the
yeah.
Did you ever miss that?
Always.
Yeah.
Maybe not at that time.
Okay.
Maybe not at that time, but to this day, if I had a second chance, I would go and train.
Yeah. You think so?
Yeah, I think so. I think no, I think there are some huge advantages about learning on the job. Huge advantages, no question about it. But I think somewhere a kind of an academic layer. And I'm not saying that everybody who goes to NSD gets that academic layer,
sure,
because it's also your interest.
It's also what you take
yeah,
from it.
It's
I
what
think.
you
So,
take.
yeah, so-
But I think somewhere the theory, the history, that kind of structured learning, I miss to this day.
And which is something that you perhaps had to do on your own then.
I do that on my own. And luckily, in the early days, not later, early days, Dubey used to encourage that.
Right.
Later, he became very dismissive about all that, But early days, he had a pretty decent library in his house.
Right.
And I would sit there and I would just read, because there was no other source of knowledge or information about theatre, especially theatre history and all these things, the different styles, the different phases in theatre history in Europe, in India, all this came through self-learning.
Yeah.
And I think the immersion that you get in an institution like this, for 3 years, that's all you're expected to do.
Yeah.
You have to do nothing else. while I was working 24 hours in Bombay, but a lot of my time had to be spent also making a living, doing other things, so it was in that sense a little more difficult, but no regrets in that
Right,
sense.
right.
Yeah, yeah.
Right. What were like key either productions or influences? I'm saying, I suppose Dubey ji was a big influence. Do you still think that
Yeah,
in
he
your
was.
work you
He
reflect
was.
that?
He was. He was. But if you're going into that, I think for me it was just more than Dubey. It was actually the time when I was learning my theater.
Right.
Okay. So I started working in around 1974, and between 74 to 83, I was working. 82, I was working with Dubey. Right, almost like 9 or 10 years. This was also the time when there was a huge shift happening in theater of a particular kind. The commercial theater was happening, and we used to see that also. But if you talk about a time when what is known as the experimental theater of that time, those days we use the word experimental very casually, and that has often been challenged. Was what were you actually doing experimental, or were you doing small plays and calling them experimental?
Okay.
Right, so
yeah.
that. But Marathi mein prayogic. It was a standard term for that kind of theater. But that was a very important moment historically all over the world and also in India, where people were really groping and searching for things. Uh, the question of why you were doing what you were doing was a very major question. You just didn't do a play because you felt like doing a play. So if I ask a theater director, why have you done this play? And they said, I liked it. And I feel that's not a good enough reason to do a play. It has to mean something more. Now, this is a problem that I have, okay? But this was a time when you were not taken seriously unless your work showed why you were doing it.
And from this period that you're talking about, of course, the fact that it was a state of flux in terms of there was a change happening in the theater as well. But do you remember like people whose work or like productions that really influenced you?
Yeah, I think for me, the first production that convinced me that I had to look at the possibility of a life in the theater was Dubey's Heaven, for it.
Right.
The first time I went to see it at Tejpal Auditorium, empty stage, blank stage, there must have been one, battered steel folding chair and, not very nice curtains, because that theater is designed for, commercial
The big
sets.
commercial plays. Yeah,
so
yeah,
they don't need to, there's no upkeep in the
Yeah, yeah,
theater,
yeah.
right? And on that stage with 3 halogen lights, no fancy lighting, these actors created magic. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it. In fact, this was a play, this Girish Karnad's play.
Had you read
Havadan.
it before you saw it?
No, I just went there out
Okay.
of the blue.
Okay.
And I saw this play, and Amrish Puri was in it, Amol Palekar was it, Deena Pathak was in it. And because I had gone with someone who knew these people, so we went backstage, and I just couldn't get over the fact that Amol Palekar, who was playing this, very beautiful, saintly, poet-type character, Devdutt was sitting backstage and smoking a cigarette. And I had one of those moments, I said, Devdutt can't be smoking, I mean, that was the illusion was so complete. And after that play, I said, if, this is amazing that theater can do this, and this is what I want to be a part of.
As he said, that era, GPD came and he completely changed my mindset, Gopu Deshpande, about modern Marathi theatre. And I was under the impression then, Marathi middle class is so important and how we have tradition of theatre and all these
yeah,
things.
yeah.
But he changed and he said, no, first play was written by Mahatma Phule in 1850 and not
Ratna.
Vishnudas Bhave.
Yeah.
And why Marathi Brahmins have, like almost snatched that medium and they have made it theirs, and all the Marathi theatre identity belongs to this middle class Brahmanical system.
wow, that's
So so he changed the politics in me, and it really affected me as a person, because as I told you, I come from a typical Marathi middle class Maharashtrian family.
So, this is a very interesting thing that I want to talk to both of you about, and this is something that you actually said. So, I'm going to quote you on that. And it's very true that urban theatre has very limited reach. Even whether it's about the impact that we are talking about, or because, and particularly English theatre, I would assume in our country particularly has very limited reach. And both of you have actually done a lot of work where you'll have gone a little bit more into the interiors. And you'll have gone beyond just the metropolitan cities, and you'll have kind of, as a very conscious decision, to kind of work with that. So I just want to talk a little bit about that, like what prompted that, how did that happen? She does a lot of work, I know, and you've also, I remember, I think, was it Cotton 56 when you were doing that? You were kind of going
We
and
were
performing.
touring a lot.
You were
yeah.
touring a lot
Yeah,
and
yeah.
kind of, taking it beyond just the
Sure,
obvious,
sure.
So,
Yeah.
maybe whoever. So,
You can see.
Actually, what happened when we were doing when I came out of NSD, and me and my husband, uh, we
that
always
was an
used,
NSD romance? Oh,
yeah,
okay, okay.
National Spouse Department. So when we came here, we thought that we have to have some, just doing our work professionally was not enough for both of us. So we were trying to see what else can we add, in our life. And that time we met Nilesh Nimkar, who was an educationist. He was working with one of the major institutes, educational institutes in Palghar district. At that time, it was Thane district, and he used to conduct these study groups where we used to go and learn about primary education, elementary education, aspects of elementary education. And that was quite interesting because I got introduced to different world altogether. So another impact, another thing which impacted me a lot other than NSD was this study group which we attended. For a year we were learning philosophy of education, how a particular subject is taught in a class, in an elementary classroom, first to fourth grade or first to sixth grade. What is national policy of education? So all these topics were discussed, and we used to give presentation. And then at the end of the study group, it lasted for a year. Nilesh said that we have to, I'm leaving my NGO and I want to start my own NGO. So we all gathered together to, help him. And we were all part of Quest, Quality
This is
Education
Quest.
Support Trust.
Yes, yes.
And during that time, I got a chance to work with teachers. And we started in 2007. And for nearly 4 5 years, I was working with teachers. I was using theater tools to make them, more open, and, because teachers from rural areas they don't have that kind of exposure.
Right.
So through theater, we were trying to give them those soft skills, develop their vocabulary, how they can understand a text. And slowly we started working with the locals also, youngsters from local areas. And then we got to this point of, Goshtaranga, where we thought that we can use theater as a medium to enhance reading and writing skills in students.
In the
And that's
kids.
why
Okay.
dramatization of children's literature in schools.
Oh.
So we run this program from 2014 onwards. And that time really I got an idea that what it is to perform for children or in rural areas where, there is so much of less exposure. It's just 110 kilometers from Bombay, but they have never seen a play.
Nice.
And like I said, I come from a middle class Maharashtrian family. Theater is our culture. And so nothing like that exists.
Right.
Only 1 or 2% of Maharashtrian people watch theater,
Right.
the mainstream commercial theater.
Right.
Otherwise, people don't know. People don't have an idea about theater. They haven't seen theater at all.
And Sunil, when did you start that? When did you start moving away from the tried and tested arenas to kind of, push those boundaries?
No,
a little
I
bit?
think in that sense, I stayed very much within theatre. I mean, you talked about Cotton 56,
Right.
Polyester 84. There, it was a play on the history of the mill workers,
workers,
and we felt, and it's basically, based on research that Ramu did, and
Yes.
also very, very wonderful oral history of that area, of that work. But all the characters are mill workers, it's their history. So we felt it would be odd for us just to take the story and play it to kind of upper class audiences. It is in a sense the history of the mill workers. Why don't we play it back to that community itself, right? So what we did was we had tie-ups, and this project was funded by the India Foundation for the Arts. So we
Okay.
said that give us a little more money so that we can actually tour with the play to other cotton textile mill towns of Maharashtra. So we went and performed in Indore. Indore has a large, there used to be textile mills there. We went into, Latur, all over. We traveled a great deal with the play, essentially performing to working class audiences. And that was very interesting for us
And
because
performing in traditional theatre spaces, or you were
so very interesting, so in our typical sort of, urban liberal thing, I would say talk to a union person, a trade union person, and say, we can perform anyway. You just tell us, community hall and all that. So he says, what makes you think we don't want to see it in an auditorium?
nice?
We'd like to see it in an auditorium properly. So, this thing about we'll do it anywhere, it was all this kind of slightly romantic notion.
Was
Where
it easy to get these workers in to watch it? Would they?
Not at all. It was not at all. It was very easy.
So they would and how was that when it was actually being performed for them as a
Well, they saw it very differently. They looked at it from a caste angle. Okay, because that's very much part of the play. At one show, in fact, in the Indore performance, there were a couple of workers who were very drunk and very angry with the play. Said, "What do you? We know all this. Give us a solution to our problem. We are literally destitute. All the mills have shut down. We have no jobs. It's all very well for you to tell us our story, but what's the future for us?" So people responded, sometimes very, very strongly. What was interesting was that the second generation, some of the mill workers would bring their, children in.
Yes,
And
yes,
children meaning youth,
Yeah,
not
yeah.
little children,
Yeah.
youth, 20, 21, that kind of thing. And they've heard stories about the mills from their father and their grandfather or from an uncle. They have never really experienced it. So for them, it was very interesting to see. They said it gave them a very different perspective. One is when, somebody in the family tells you it used to be like this, and some of it is nostalgic, some of it is romantic. But to see it a little more objectively, that really was, I think that generation was most impacted by it, I think.
wow. Gitanjali, one interesting thing that which is I wanted to talk about was that we are talking about like traditional forms of theatre.
Yeah.
And for example, you spoke of NSD and the stuff that you were doing, but say something like a Lavani, which is not something that you were originally trained in, I would assume.
No, not
But this is now in a later stage. Is that some sort of a like you've kind of brought that a little bit into the mainstream focus, and that's been as a conscious effort to kind of like hero it a bit. When did your interest in that start?
we have to understand as a society that the knowledge these people have, the wisdom they have, and the culture, it's in their blood. So we have, as educated people or privileged people, we have to give that dignity to these people. Like, we used in 70s, they used all these folk forms in
Right.
theatre.
Right.
Ratan Thyam or Habib Ji, or all these people, or even in Ghanshiram Kotwal, Tendulkar used tamasha artists.
Theatre of roots, what is known as theatre
Right,
of
right.
roots.
So it's I think that as when I was working with Quest, we were doing interdisciplinary thing, education and theatre.
Yes.
Likewise, we have to the urban theatre and the traditional folk theatre has to mingle, and then we will also benefit from it,
Right.
not just those people.
No, but there is always, you see, there is also this danger of appropriation.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, now you are
Yeah.
when I say you, I don't mean you particularly, but an urban practitioner is in a position of power,
Yes.
much more. We have enough examples where a urban theatre practitioner picks up a folk performer as part of their work,
Yeah.
and it's almost like I have discovered this.
Right.
And
Whereas
you,
it's
you understand,
years of
na?
a-
Yeah,
legacy,
this is a 300-year-old tradition.
Yeah.
You have just picked it up and started using it, and suddenly it's yours.
And you've also produced a play. Did you produce? There was a play called Ek Rikami Baju. Yes.
Yeah.
How was
Actually, what happened? I was doing Marathi commercial theatre. I did
Right.
2-3 plays with Paresh Mokashi,
Right.
and then like in actor's life, a lull came, and there was no work, and I was really not understanding why. I had got some awards also. I did all the 500 shows or 200 shows, which a good disciplined actor should do.
Correct, yeah.
But still, I didn't get any offers.
Right.
from the regular stalwarts from Marathi commercial theatre. So I thought I was doing TV at that time, and I
Okay.
was earning some kind of money. So I thought I should produce my own play. And तो मेरी बैट है तो मैं ही बैटिंग करूंगी सॉर्ट ऑफ सो आई प्लेड द
Why
मेन
not?
रोल तो वैसे आई सो अनिरुद्ध खुटवड़ at that time I was doing workshops also because of Aniruddha Kutwad. So there we met. I told him that there is a good script, we should work on it, and he suddenly got the translation and adaptation of it. And Veena Zamkar, me and Padmanabh Bind, we did a play called Ekrika Mein Bazu. It was on breast cancer issue.
Yes, yes.
And we did almost 30 to 35 shows, and that was the beginning of like I understanding theatre completely. You know, this was before Quest and before Goshtarang.
Actually, I believe that like in some countries you have the compulsory draft, where you spend 2 years in the army.
army, yeah.
I think all young people should work in theatre production for 2 years.
Yes,
But
absolutely.
Production.
Don't
I really
let them
believe-
come on stage.
No acting. Production.
Production.
You become so innovative. You
Yeah.
become so smart at
Absolutely.
getting things done and handling. I'm telling you, it's a training for life. Make 10 rupees do the work of 20 rupees.
Yeah.
Deal with people, deal with, organizational things, find jugaad, make things happen.
I agree.
think
I'm
it's a-
always short-staffed. I agree.
yeah.
So, yeah. So, one of the places where, of course, I've seen both of you collaborate was a play called Sex, Morality and Censorship,
Yeah.
which we spoke about briefly, which I thought was a fantastic play. Of course, you've heard that enough. But I wanted to talk about one of Sunil's favorite topics, which is censorship. So, I want to talk about that a little bit in terms of, so when we started doing theatre, we thought कि हम तो under the radar है. हमारा तो सेंसरशिप होता ही नहीं है ना कि थिएटर को कौन भाव दे रहा है कि हम सेंसरशिप एक्चुअली करें बट you've had different experiences.
Yeah.
So what has that journey been like, and was that what prompted this play?
Yes, absolutely. It was not just about theatre censorship, it was about censorship.
In general, yes.
I was sitting at Bangalore airport one day waiting to come back to Bombay, and 2 or 3 things that happened. One was that this was when the first BJP government had come into power at the center. There was a brief period when they were there. And I used to be a documentary filmmaker also. And it was during this period that there was censorship of documentary films in the Mumbai International Film Festival.
Oh, really? Wow,
Yes,
okay.
yes. And that was for the first time, we sort of started seeing that happen. And then there was a parallel festival in protests, etc., etc. Hussein's paintings had been slashed
Yes.
and attacked.
Yes.
The atmosphere had started changing. And I said, this is something that really we should be talking about.
This is what year?
I'm very bad at dates, but it must have been, 2010 or something like that. Yeah, roughly around
7,
that
8,
time.
yeah.
Yeah, 8, 9, 10, maybe around that time. And I said, it's really important we talk. And I said, if we talk about censorship, who says no and why do they say no?
Right.
That was the idea. So we are theatre people, let's talk about censorship in theatre, because that's something that's
Sure.
close to heart.
Yeah.
And then when you say, let's talk about censorship in theatre, and you're producing in Maharashtra and in Bombay, then in 1972, the iconic case study of censorship is Sakaram Binder, And the advantage with Sakaram Binder is that it's a documented episode.
Yes.
There is a book, Binder Che Divas, that the producer, director of the play actually wrote himself. Many of the people who were part of that production or who were active at that time were still alive at that time, so we could actually go and interview them and do that kind of thing. So the idea was to look at censorship and try and understand why it happens, and why does the state or why does the society say no to something. So the play grew out of that.
Right.
It was an idea, and then that grew. Shanta Gokhale came in and gave us a very, very tight framework to work in. Iravati came in and did a lot of the research. So we worked on it for almost 9 months to a year before going into rehearsal.
Right.
So the script was developed from scratch. So that was the idea of that play.
And how was that eventually the questions that were raised by that production?
Yeah.
And how were those received? Did you face any kind of...
There was no problem in terms of the playing script. In fact, there was a scene, a documented scene that, Kamlakar Sarang had actually talked about an interaction that he had with the censor board when his play was being sort of resisted.
Right.
So that is recreated on stage. We also used to, make fun of the fact that you don't get a permanent certificate. You always, when your plays are slightly dicey, they give you a provisional certificate. And then they just check out what's the reaction to the play. And if there is some kind of hostile reaction to the play, then they withdraw the certificate. And our play at that time had a temporary certificate.
Right.
So, and which we used to say at the end, we've got a temporary certificate. And then the day we got a permanent certificate, we were most disappointed because then we couldn't crack that joke. So it was interesting, but it was not really sex morality that actually Cotton 56, Polyester 84 ran into trouble.
Okay.
And they said, we have a rule, they could never show us that rule, but we have a rule that you cannot talk about living politicians. And that play used to talk about Bal Thackeray and his role of the Shiv Sena, in history at that time. The Shiv Sena, and against the communist unions,
Right.
the mill workers at communist unions.
Right.
So they said you can't have any reference to Bal Thackeray in this or anybody else who's a living politician. So I've had plenty of run-ins with the censor board. There was a time when I would arrive with the censor board with the script and they would say, "Oh my God, here we go again," that kind of thing. There was one play, I won't take the name now because it's too recent, where we had to negotiate what I could keep and what I would give up.
Wow.
Yeah.
I was going to ask what your riskiest production was,
Yeah,
but
yeah. Actually, if you want that, sir, then you'll have to give up something else.
wow.
Yeah, that
But
kind
there
of
was a
negotiation.
dialogue.
There was a dialogue. There was a dialogue. But of course, the interesting thing is the most absurd thing to try and do is to censor live performance. As a director, you have no control over what your actors are going to do on stage. Some guy sitting the censor board is going to control.
No.
Give me a break.
Yeah.
And do you have people to monitor every live performance in the country, I mean, in the state? That are you sticking to? It's a joke. It's a joke. I mean, morally and in terms of on principle, it's completely not acceptable. But even in a practical level, what are you trying to impose? It's ridiculous. Do you know every song that you sing has to be in public, has to also be censored? Any live performance.
Wow.
Yeah, that's Maharashtra and Gujarat, the only two states left in this country that follow a draconian colonial law of 1897 or something like that.
The thing is, do you now find yourself holding back when you're choosing a script?
I wouldn't say holding back. I mean,
Or,
in which case I would not have
reconsidering.
done Barricade.
Right.
Because Barricade, in that sense, is the most in your face. I'm not saying it's the most political work, but it's most in your face politically. I think I've been very, very aware of the dangers. I think the real danger is of self-censorship.
Yes.
And that is the intent, that you create an atmosphere of fear so that you don't have to do anything after that. People censor themselves. And then, that's the whole idea of creating an atmosphere of fear.
Right.
Yeah. Then you don't have to go around catching individuals. Everybody's just so scared that they're not doing anything.
Right.
So I think as artists, we have to, and I'm not saying this that everybody has to do it, but those of us who are interested in this kind of work and feel that that's important, I think our biggest worry is actually self-censorship.
Yeah.
Secondly, is not to take ourselves that seriously, thinking that that our work is going to lead to some incredible change.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And this is what I mean when I said that theatre has a very, very limited
Reach, yes.
But what I think is very important, that in the landscape of performances, theatre, music, if somebody were to go on to Book My Show and say, what do I watch today or this weekend? And at the end of their search, they might choose the most conventional, obvious thing to watch.
Right.
They might go to NMAC and see something,
Yeah.
Life of Pi or something.
Right.
That doesn't matter. But in their search, do they also come upon other kinds of work that are not conventional, that are questioning?
Right.
That you become aware that, it is possible for these things to coexist. There can be work about that questions, that's political, that's asking questions of the state, of society, etc. That exists. Our biggest worry today is that all that is becoming invisible. The idea is to wipe it out completely. The mainstream strength and power can never be underestimated. I'm saying that today we have to survive this so that we remain, something remains. And it's not very difficult for them to wipe us out, make us completely invisible and irrelevant. So I think that's really what we can do.
And I think that's what I want. Not at mainstream level, I can do that. I don't see myself doing that. But that's what I do when I work with children.
Right.
So introducing books like, The YY Girl
Mm-hmm.
or Our Amazing Cow
Mm-hmm.
or Carver. So introducing these books to them
As an
where
ideology, there is some
yeah,
existence.
Yes,
where you
absolutely.
question, where
Yeah.
you question,
She's
and
absolutely right.
so I feel that sense more than censorship, we need education.
Yes.
And if we at our personal level, not necessarily in we everybody can, as Sunil said, everybody can do mainstream stuff, but we have to keep that thing alive.
Today's time, a space where you can come in and have a intelligent conversation and listen to differing points of view
Uh,
without killing each other
yeah.
is a radical act.
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying, right?
No, so we had the last episode was with the with the stand-up comic, and he was talking about how his show has had to evolve, and that self-censorship
Yeah.
is because now people are offended by anything. Forget the politics of it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Politics is of
anything.
course one thing, but the other thing is everyone's now upset about everything. So it's almost like you have to kind of keep nipping and tucking to just kind of make sure that. And very late in life, of course. I mean, see, like we say, there was always undertones of stuff in place that we chose that that were things that kind of mattered. And I think maybe post COVID, there was a little bit of just awakening that happened in terms of just wanting to be a little bit more relevant, perhaps. So make a. So I mean, and the funny thing is, so we did an adaptation of an Ibsen play,
Yeah,
which is a
something in the
classic.
water.
Yeah, there's
Yeah,
something in
yeah,
the water.
yeah.
There's, I mean, Ibsen,
Yeah.
yaar, matlab ke-
No.
And
It's very political.
So you modernized it. The moment you modernized it, of course, the politics
Yeah,
became in your face.
in your
Yeah.
face.
And it had actually reached a point where during our first run, someone tweeted something, and I had to ask my cast. I said that, are you all feeling comfortable to go on for the next one? Because I don't know who's showing up. And they were reacting to the stupidest things. They won't actually react to the political point that the play is making. They'll react to that one joke that was thrown away. It's not that he said something offensive over there. It's not that we are actually questioning a larger problem that they're not looking at. So I think that, it's a weird kind of, how to find the balance in that. And then, but of course, also Sunil is right. I don't know how far-reaching the impact is, quite honestly.
Yeah, but I
So-
don't think we should over worry about that.
Yeah.
The fact that you exist is also now important.
Yeah.
The fact that it's
That's a great
happening
line.
is also
Yeah, that is a-
important.
that is- that- yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, just to kind of talk about, like, so I was thinking about it, like in terms of this, in terms of the political potential of theatre, or which has always existed, of course. So in terms of, like, you said there was a period of change where we were talking about why are we doing what are we doing, right? So I'm saying, like, I recently shot something in which Sudhanva Deshpande was acting, and he gifted me the Halla Bol book, and I was that was a big, I knew, but I was reading all about it, and
Photograph.
1989 that happened, and so that was kind of a watershed moment
Yeah,
in terms
yeah,
of
very much.
where were you when that happened,
Well, it was here in Bombay. We just heard about it. We just,
and what was the vibe?
No, I think everybody was very disturbed. Everybody was very disturbed by what had happened because that was really very in your face, and it was a person had been killed here. I mean, it's
Yeah,
not,
I was in Bombay. I think I was in college or school, and I had read it in the newspaper. And when I went to NSD, it was just the next lane
Right.
Yeah.
where
Right.
he was killed.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So that really hit me a lot. When I was walking and I realized that it's Safdar Hashmi Road.
But did that change anything? Do you think people got quieter or louder?
No, I think there was, in fact, quite a strong response to that.
Right.
Yeah, and interestingly, at that time, there was a space for that kind of response was possible.
Yeah.
So immediately the next day they were back there performing.
Right.
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 Then the annual on the 1st of January the festival started
Yes,
happening.
yes.
There was a kind of a swelling support at that time. There was an upswell, and it happened. It happened. But how these things are. They're there up to a point and then they slowly dissipate. And some people keep it alive and that kind of thing. Also, I think it affected and it impacted far more directly those who were doing activist theatre.
Right. Right.
Street theatre, actively out there. Our theatre is not really like that.
Right,
And
yes.
for me, I personally, I don't see myself as an activist really, So in that sense, it didn't have a direct impact. But I do know that among street theatre performers, it had a very, very strong impact. Then, of course, street theatre has got completely NGOized. So it's so that has also now been sanitized and completely taken away. What is street theatre now? College level, there's a lot of that
Yes.
josh and energy, and then
Yes.
out beyond that, it's just become. And Janam, of course, keeps working, but it's really one of the few groups that is still around.
I was going to ask about your acting career. Because that's how I first saw you in Kalyug, a film.
Me too.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
there- and then and why you stopped doing that? That was something that was there's such an innocent charm in
Yeah,
that film.
Well, my first 10 years were as an actor.
Right.
And then circumstances then made me shift to direction. It took me almost 2 or 3 years to shift my mind to a direction mind.
Right.
Yeah.
No, but I've seen you back on stage of late in
have,
narrator
yeah.
mode. But
Yeah. No, I do. I do. And I
yeah.
enjoy it.
Yeah.
I've also done, small parts in sometimes when my arm is twisted and the money is good in an OTT kind of thing.
Oh.
Yeah. Great
wow,
fun.
wow.
It's very theatrical. They say, just cool it. Sir, itna mat kudiye.
OTT, you mean the medium that Gitanjali rules?
Yeah, I guess.
Not at all. I don't
Where she
do
gets awards every season.
But I liked it because I
yeah.
got to wear nice clothes,
Yes.
and all that.
Yes,
And they dyed my hair black for me. And,
Nice.
So it was good fun. I like it. I like the attention that you get there. Yeah.
Okay,
But it's
great.
very hard work acting. It's very hard work.
I'll open it up now for any questions that may be there from the audience. Are there any? Oh my goodness. Okay.
As you have said that you have been a gap, you have been bridging the gap between the theater that used to happen and the theater that happens today. What do you think has been the change for? Is it for the better? Or is the theater that is happening these days better from what used to happen, or which one do you prefer as a practitioner who has seen the times? मतलब आपने एक समय देखे, युग देखा है, तो पहले से अब तक, what do you feel the change is all about?
Both, I mean, they're very different kinds of theater. So eventually, it's your taste in theater, what you enjoy, and again, to generalize that, there are many different kinds of theater practices across the country.
Yeah.
So I'm talking about perhaps the kind of theater practice you see of a particular kind in a particular language in Mumbai, for instance. Okay. So, for instance, there is more devising work. You find that a particular kind of theater is doing much more movement, physical work. This is new in that sense, and you see more and more of that happening. But that coexists with, say, as Gitanjali has been talking about, the commercial theatre in Marathi and Gujarati, that still follows conventions that are, forget my generation, even older than that. Okay, the drawing room plays still happen. So many kinds of theatres coexist. So it's very difficult to say what is good and what is bad. But there is an energy, and I would certainly say that there is far more theatre activity in Mumbai today. There are more people making theatre and more people watching theatre than ever used to happen before.
Yeah.
And that's definitely a good thing. Yeah.
Any more questions from there? Yes.
Is there a moral responsibility on artists to have a political stance, or is entertainment for entertainment's sake okay?
Yeah, it's fine. That's what I said. It's entirely up to you. I mean, there's no such thing. I would encourage you to think more thoughtfully about what you do. But there are many kinds of practice. I mean, for instance, in England, there is the tradition of the working director. The working director is very skilled in the craft. Their job is just to direct a play. That's it. They will be told, this is the play that
Yeah,
we
they're
want
not
direct to
choosing the-
direct.
yeah,
They
yeah.
don't choose it because, this play speaks to me. And they'll make a perfectly good production, well presented, but it will be an illustrative work. It will not be an interpretive work. If you're happy with that, that's fine. And you make a perfectly good living doing that. And I'm saying in a scenario where even the most realized so-called directors here don't know the basic craft, then I'm saying that's at least these guys have
That's
trained to
better,
do
yeah.
it. That's better, right? So I don't think so. I think you should follow you should arrive at your own decisions,
And I also feel that when you have, I think, as Sunil said, you have to find your own voice. And when you find your own voice, you will ask questions. You will question, not necessarily politically, but you will ask questions to yourself. Why am I doing this?
I will go to. It's supposed to be a rapid fire section. I'm
this
not a
I'm
rapid
very
person.
bad at
I'm not
this, yeah.
rapid, so it's the slow burn. That's what I call it because I can't be fast. It's very
Rapid fire
simple. It's
is
not
always
rapid.
made
There's no
to
timer.
only the-
There's no hamper. There's nothing. It's just it's quicker answers. It's where we can't wax eloquent about our answers.
I know, that's
so
the
it's,
problem.
It's one answer. No, but the questions are such that you shouldn't do more than a sentence.
Okay.
So it won't really. It's just some of them might have you to choose things that might offend other people you worked with.
Meaning there are multiple choice.
No,
wala?
no, you make the choice. So I'm quickly going into this, and that's the last section of it. So we can let you go. Then, actually, first one's very simple, and it's for both of you. The last play that you saw and loved.
Oh my! See, these are.
She can answer first, and you can think about it. So,
Last play I saw, I can tell you, but last play I saw and loved, then I have to think about it.
but will it be the 70s? Or is it going to be that phase? Was there
No.
anything after Dubey's work that you liked? So
No. I think आपला ह्यांचं नाटक काय तुझी औकात काय ना?
तुझी औकात.
Yeah, I saw a Marathi play तुझी औकात काय. I really like that play.
Same, yeah. Actually,
is that the same one?
Yeah.
Oh my god! See, इसकी publicity हो गई. Very nice. Okay, now just for fun, the last play you saw?
Sharanya's play last week. The Dream Girls, or what was it? What is it called? You know, about the Kannada cinema
I don't
artists of a
know
particular.
this
Very
play. I don't
interesting.
know this
Yeah.
I saw a Marathi commercial play called Suryachi Pille.
Nice.
Yeah. Again, it was a मतलब मेरे
It's an old play.
नाना नानी जो नाटक देखते थे
Okay.
mainstream commercial, but of course the actors were very good and it's yeah.
The simpler then, the last film you saw and loved.
I can't even remember the last film I saw. I
Nice.
don't really
That's
watch
a true
films.
theatre person.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm discounting what I've seen on television. Huh? I'm talking about on
Also
the screen.
loved, I've said, na, so that will make it tough. That's going to the 70s then. So that's.
I liked All We Imagine Is Light.
Oh, you saw that?
Yeah.
Oh, I
In
still have to-
theatres.
I still have to. Okay. Both of you, again, one other thing that you all did is both of you all actually went in different capacities and performed at the Globe. For the Shakespeare Festival and where you spoke about your play. And I know that both of you have performed across the country and the world in various venues. I've heard stories of you in Russia, but which we can't say on our podcast. But just a simple, across the world, your favorite venue to have performed at?
Wow. One place.
Maybe, as in like one that you remember being a wonderful experience.
Well, I
performing
think
at.
the Globe was a very beautiful experience, but then there are equally beautiful experiences in other spaces. Globe was very beautiful because the
It
way
was
it's
the-
built.
yes,
and
okay.
2,000 people watching and open to the air and quite very difficult to fail at the Globe.
Very difficult to fail?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because the audience comes in with so much
Yeah.
empathy and to enjoy and to like what they're going to watch.
And this was I mean, I'm slow burning. This was not necessarily an Indian audience.
When we first went there for the festival, it was large numbers of people were Indians,
Right.
Gujarati Indians,
Right.
Because our play was in Gujarati.
Sure.
The second season we did there, we did a regular run, so then it was a mixed audience, mainly white.
And they obviously there's no surtitles, subtitles. Or they were,
There's a synopsis that is up there,
Right.
But no dialogue by dialogue.
and they were responding.
Oh, yeah.
to-
Oh,
and,
beautiful.
And how was your? I mean, was Globe also your favorite, or is there a better venue you've performed at?
Actually we performed in Chile in a bullfighting
Arena. Wow.
theater. It was like 5,000.
This was Pia Behrupia only.
Yeah, Pia
Okay.
Behrupia. And there
Okay.
were two like big screens and we had these lapel mics and all. But it was like, I
And
never imagined.
audience all
I'm
around.
like just 5 feet tall, so I don't know whether people were able to see me or not. But I enjoyed, I really, I never imagined that, I will feel, I'll be performing in an arena theater of that
And
scale.
there, I'm assuming it was not an Indian audience. There
No,
it
no,
was
not
a-
at all. There was it was they had Spanish subtitles
Okay.
and songs were given some.
But they were responding to the energy
the
of the. Wow.
subtitling was very good and it was manually handled. So अगर हम भूल भी जाते तो वो handle किया जाता था.
Wow. Okay, might have to choose and be a little controversial, but both of you, as an audience, your favorite performer on stage.
Oh, as an audience,
As an
my
audience member,
favorite
as an audience, like when you
performer
go to
on
watch a
stage.
play, and actor or actress
again,
that you would definitely
yeah,
go for?
Yeah. No, I see. Again, this question can't be answered with one
No, say
favorite
five.
thing.
Huh.
But I would say that when you say that, the first name that comes to my mind is Mukta Barve.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Mukta is amazing.
she's
But now
just
you can't say the
wonderful
same.
to watch.
No,
You can't say the same.
I like Jyoti Dogra.
So that's one person that you would not
Yeah.
miss out.
See, generational gap.
Yeah, well, I mean, I've never seen Mukta Barve, so
Oh.
yeah, so
She's
Yeah,
fabulous.
She's
yeah.
fabulous.
But
She's
I had to give a different answer also. But of
Yes.
course, I've seen that kind of theatre a lot.
Yeah, no, in
So,
a particular
yeah.
style of acting.
Right,
Again,
right.
I'm not saying that this. She's very clearly in a particular convention of acting, and in that, her performance, especially in that play, Apna
Char Saugi.
Char Saugi is a masterclass. She does one phone conversation for 15 minutes. Just you hear her side. I mean, you'll just blow.
But again, I've seen that performance of Vandana Gupte also.
I'm sure. Yeah.
But
20
that's a
years
play
back.
that's been happening. Yeah, it's a.
So for me, that kind of theatre I've seen since my
A lot.
childhood, like Bhakti Barve Inamdar, Vandana Gupte, Nina Kulkarni, all the Rima Lagu and now Mukta. So these are the kind of actors I know that, I know what how the next line is going to be. But if it's Yuki or Jyoti, I don't know what they're performing. And they're theatre makers also. So
Yes.
that excites me more than, acting in a Marathi typical commercial way. So for me, it's
And men have to up their game clearly. Because only women's names have come
Yeah,
here. So male acting is pretty at a low right now. So clearly, for you, Gitanjali, for a middle class girl looking to become an actress, break into become an actress, what would your advice be?
to a middle class.
Yes, who's wanting to kind of. You're not going to get the actor question, you're going to get the director question, so you can think of that. So
I think if anybody wants to become an actor, I feel that if you train yourself, not necessarily in a formal school, but you have to learn a lot, and you have to see theatre a lot, and you have to again ask question: why do I want to do theatre? Is it that important for me?
right.
Because it is a very difficult thing to be an actor.
Yes.
And you get frustrated very quickly because nobody casts me, or I'm not getting good roles. So it's very easy to get frustrated. So if you clearly know why I'm doing this, then there are very less chances of getting frustrated, and you will continue your work, and your work is very important. I feel that anybody, and especially privileged people have to raise their voice. And if you not necessarily you have to become a professional actor. You can become, I don't like this word amateur, but you can have a parallel profession
Sure.
as an actor.
Sure.
So not necessarily you have to earn your living from that.
Right.
But you can do theatre. Theatre can be done anywhere. It doesn't need to be mainstream, or you don't have to perform at Prithvi. You can perform in a classroom. So I think that is
No, I agree, because it's amazing how many people come up to me wanting work in the theatre without having actually watched any theatre.
Yeah.
They've not watched it. Mujhe bas theatre karna hai. I want to do theatres. There's a lot that happens where they just come up to you and you're like, have you watched anything? Like, also, why have you come to me? Have you watched anything of mine? And you haven't. And I said that you have to watch everything to decide what you don't want to be a part of. Like, firstly, if you don't, like, if you're looking for yourself, but yeah, it's just amazing that there's not enough of that. So, no, that's a great point. And the very last question of this episode, Sunil, for you is for a director starting off, who's going to direct for the first time, words of wisdom.
So I think one of the big problems that I see is in our country, directors prakat hote hain.
And scene. And cut.
Being a good organizer is not being a good director. Being
I agree, yeah.
holding your authority in a room is not. That's one part. Yes, you have to be good at all that. But I think being a director is really being interested in everything. And I will echo to a large extent what Gitanjali has said, that theatre is about life here. So you have to be interested in everything in life. You need to study a lot. You need to see the connections between things. That is what will make your work interesting. That when you are able to give an audience a new insight into an everyday situation, and you're not going to be finding a unique story. It's not going to happen always, right? But it's how you tell the story. What do you see in the story? So that requires a lot of study, a lot of thinking, and of course the craft is very, very, very critical. Any carpenter knows that unless he knows to work the saw and the chisel, you're not going to make a table. Why do theater directors feel that they can direct a play without knowing the basic tools, right? So it's study, it's the mind, it's the craft, and it's an interest in people, it's an interest in life. And that's really critical for that. If you don't have that, forget. A tremendous amount of physical stamina and mental stamina goes into direction.
मैं भी रो के सोने वाला हूँ आज. Well, that was wonderful. Thank you so much. Thank you. On that note of self-reflection and changing my line of work, thank you so much for agreeing to be on this and to
you.
impart
Thank
the
you.
information. I hope it was fun for you.
Yeah, it was
Yes, yes,
fun.
yes.
Thank you so
And
much.
it was good to just hang out with both of you because
Yeah.
that doesn't happen enough. But here's to more of those sessions.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.